Guys, how's it going? It is that time of year again, is it not? It's Halloween time. It's October. So why not talk about some of this creepy, scary stuff, right? I know. So, the other day, a good friend of mine told me about a documentary called Room 237. A good friend by the name of Joker Tech also writes on my site. You can check out his stuff if you want to. He told me about this documentary, Room 237. It's all about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And if you're aware, if you're familiar with the film, Room 237 is where all the creepy shit takes place. It's where the ghosts and ghouls start to come out and play, so to speak. Um, that's why they named the documentary Room 237. And it's a really amazing documentary. I'm going to put this down. I'm going to put up here a nice little, poster for the, or DVD cover, whatever, of the documentary, because it's a really amazing documentary that I think everybody should see. It's on Netflix right now. If you have Netflix, you have no excuse. You need to go and watch this right freaking now, because it's really a fantastic documentary. It gets like 9 or 10 different people's thoughts and opinions on what the movie means. Because Stanley Kubrick, as we all know, is a brilliant director, and most of the time when we're watching his stuff, we're just trying to figure out what the hell he's trying to say to us. And that is, like, for these people, that was the case with The Shining. A lot of people would point to The Shining and say it's one of his more obvious films. It's just a straight horror film. You won't think that after you watch Room 237. Because after you watch that, you'll see things that couldn't have possibly been a mistake. You know what I mean? It's like people will point out things. It's like, oh, that could have easily been a mistake, and that wasn't intentionally put in there or something like that. But no, Kubrick is fucking brilliant, and he puts things in there intentionally. And it's pointed out in this movie that he actually went to ad agencies and asked them how they did their subliminal messaging and stuff like that before he made this movie. So there is a lot of stuff in there that is definitely subliminal messaging. There's one point in the film where we see a shot of Danny in the bathroom from his bedroom, and there are all these stickers on the door. And the one that's closest and up front and in focus, it's just like in your freaking face. You can't miss it, especially if you have the Blu-ray. You cannot miss it. It's a picture of Dopey, one of the seven dwarfs. It's a sticker of Dopey. And as we zoom past Dopey in the peripheral vision of our eye here, and into the hallway, closer to the bathroom where Danny is, you can't miss it. A few moments later, when we're back in Danny's room after, well, I'm not going to give anything away, but a few moments later, we're back in Danny's room, and his mother and somebody else walks out of the room, and when they do, you see the door again with all the stickers. Guess which sticker is not there anymore? Prominently not there anymore. The Dopey sticker. Was that a mistake? I don't think so. You don't prominently display a sticker like that taking up half the freaking screen and then take it away and it's a mistake. It was not a mistake. That was intentional. So it just goes to show you there were things in this film that Stanley Kubrick did that you probably didn't even notice, that were intentional, that were small, and say something about the film in general, and tell us that at least there's a little bit more to this than the average viewer is going to pick up on if they don't actually, pay attention to it. So, I mean, they've got people speculating about what it's saying about Native Americans and about white expansion and stuff like that. What's the word I'm looking for? Manifest destiny. stuff like that. And then there are people talking about what it says about the Holocaust and Nazis. Like apparently there's a lot of Nazi, or there's supposedly some kind of a Nazi tie-in to what we're seeing as well. But then there is a complete and total nut job who starts talking about how this movie is Stanley Kubrick's way of saying that he helped to stage the Apollo 11 moon landing. I lost my shit at that. That was freaking hilarious. So yes, some of these people know what they're talking about. Some of these people have got some brilliant, interesting ideas, and others are completely insane. But just for the experience of seeing like a few people go wow and finding things that you never noticed before that are really freaking awesome, and then also the experience of hearing these nut jobs come up with their insane theories for what the movie means, you definitely have to check out Room 237. It's a great documentary about the movie. And then if you have the Shining Blu-ray, you should watch it. You should, after you watch Room 237, watch this on Blu-ray so it's in high quality, high definition. You can pick up on everything that you just saw in the documentary and, think about what it all means to yourself. Because I swear to God, after watching that documentary, it made me pay closer attention. It made me catch things that weren't mentioned in the documentary that I had never noticed before that I caught for myself. So it's like when you hear these people talking about all these things that you never noticed before, it makes you want to pay closer attention to the film. It makes you want to think about it deeper. And when you think about it deeper, you start to notice things that you never noticed before, that maybe nobody ever noticed before, or at least that, things that are interesting that, aren't really brought up very often. For me, what I caught for myself was Room 237. Uh, Danny asks what at one point in the room he asks Dick, the chef in the film, the black chef. He asks him what is in Room 237. And when I heard that, it immediately brought to mind something else that I had recently heard, that I had recently read, because I recently read George Orwell's 1984. And in the book, Winston famously asks O'Brien, what is in room 101? And I did a quick search on Google and noticed something when I typed in what is in room. Those 4 words. Just go ahead and type it up in Google yourself. The only 2 instances that I saw were what is in room 237 and what is in room 101. It seems a little too convenient to me that the only 2 references to what is in room ... were from George Orwell's 1984 and then again in The Shining. So, I mean, whether it's something that Stephen King originally had in his novel or something that Stanley Kubrick is trying to touch on here, I have noticed this, significant connection here. At least to me, it's a significant connection that these are the only 2, well-known novels where there's a room and people are asking what is in this room, and the room number just so happens to be a 3-number room. It just so happens to be, in this case, it's in a hotel, and the other, it's in the Ministry of Love. The Ministry of Love, I love that. But yeah, I mean, I thought about it and I read the quote from George Orwell's 1984, and if you look it up, O'Brien's answer to what is in room 101, and if you connect that to The Shining, it's very interesting because he's saying that room 101 is what is in room 101. It is your worst fears. It is the worst possible thing you can imagine. That's what's in room 101. Interesting that that's similar to what's in room 237. I'm just saying, it's an interesting connection that I picked up on that wasn't even in the documentary Room 237. Um, and another thing I picked up on was the idea that Jack, Danny's father, Jack Nicholson, Jack Torrance, um, he, at least to me, there's enough evidence in the story in the film that The Shining, the namesake of the film, the thing that this might be a spoiler to some who haven't seen it, so you might not want to watch further on from this, but uh, obviously, if you haven't seen it, I would suggest right now that you go pick this up on Blu-ray. It's rather cheap right now. It's like $8 on Blu-ray on Amazon, and watch Room 237 and just do yourself a favor. It's freaking fantastic. But yes, to continue on here, there's evidence to support the theory that The Shining is hereditary, because Dick, the other guy who has The Shining, the black guy who's talking to Danny about it in the beginning of the film, he mentions that he used to talk to his grandmother all the time without even opening his mouth. His grandmother, family, a connection, a family connection. Uh, and then later on in the film, I mean, you're hearing us saying all these things about Jack, right? About his father. The only person that we know, the only two people we know of that have The Shining are Dick and Danny. Now, my question is, does Jack have The Shining? Because Jack, for the longest time, is also seeing things and experiencing things that aren't there, like Danny was. And in the beginning, he mentions feeling like, when he first got there, feeling like he had been there his whole life, that he knew what was around every corner and stuff like that. Now, how could you possibly know something like that unless you've got a gift? And the reason I think it's hereditary is because the more evidence for this is his first experience seeing something is seeing the bartender Lloyd. The bartender Lloyd, he says, "Hi Lloyd, good to see you." And then he mentions, "You're the best bartender from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon. You always have been." Which signifies to me that he's seen Lloyd before. Now, Danny has his own little friend in his mouth called, Tony? Tony, yeah. He talks like this with Tony. Is Lloyd what Jack uses? Is it his version of Tony? That's my question. Because, as we know, from the film, Jack savagely attacked his son at one point, and dislocated his arm after a night of drinking. Now, it seems to me that maybe he thought he went drinking. He went out and had more than a few drinks. But really, he went out and he was trying to express himself about his issues that he was having, about the fact that he's different than everybody else because he's got The Shining, and he was experiencing that and expressing it to the only person he felt comfortable expressing it to, Lloyd the bartender. Because as we all know, booze is known as, or it's referred to as, truth serum, right? So maybe for him, the only way that he can really express himself truly and feel free to talk about these things is to pretend to himself and show to himself that he's getting drunk in a bar and talking to this with a bartender. Maybe Lloyd is that comfort for him that Tony is for Danny. And I think it's an interesting concept to think about while you're watching the movie, because I think, didn't Stephen King say he was going to do a sequel for this? I would love, honestly, to see a connection to that kind of thing, some kind of a hereditary thing pointed out, or a possible hereditary thing pointed out in a possible sequel to this. And it's just a really interesting concept, a really interesting story, a really interesting movie. If you haven't seen it, you definitely need to. So yes, first thing I watched for my Halloween, horror movies was I watched Room 237, and then the next night I watched The Shining on Blu-ray, which, by the way, looks fucking beautiful. If you have not seen this movie on Blu-ray, you need to. It pops. It pops. And it's creepier than ever. But anyway, let me move on here and mention that I'm also going to be watching this. This is probably the next thing I'm going to be watching, is the Shining TV series. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the TV series version. They don't think it's as good as the Kubrick Shining, and they're probably right. But it's just, no matter what you do, this is just an interesting, amazing story. And I honestly did like this miniseries version. A lot of people didn't like it. I actually did like it. And I want to revisit it and, see if I can recapture why I liked it so much. Maybe it wasn't the same as Kubrick, and nothing can ever really match up to what Kubrick did, or what Jack Nicholson did in that role, for that matter. But this really is, regardless, a pretty damn good interpretation of the Shining story. So if you have not seen it and you want to pick it up, this is a pretty good DVD set. You can pick it up for between $5 and $10 nowadays, and it comes on 2 discs, one flipper disc and one single-sided. So yeah, flipper disc, can't avoid it. But it's really quite good. I know I enjoyed it. Comes with special features, feature-length commentary by Stephen King, cast members Steven Weber and Cynthia Garris, director Mick Garris, and select crew, plus 11 additional scenes that were not originally shown. So, yeah, not a bad deal for what you get here. It comes in 3 parts. If I'm not mistaken, the 3 parts are an hour and a half each. So, it's a good hefty watch. If you watch this, it's like 2 and something hours. I can't remember how long. 144 minutes. 2 hours and 4 minutes long. This is twice as long. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. That's going to be next on my Shining list. I've been really enjoying revisiting The Shining, especially thanks to Room 237 and picking up on all these things that I never picked up on before. So if you haven't done that in a while, I highly suggest doing that. Check out Room 237. Give your brain a little bit of a, wash so that, you get interested in this again and get thinking deeper about it again. And then start watching the different iterations of the story and start asking yourself what it all really means and what's really going on here. Because it's quite an interesting journey. So, yeah. Anyways, that's it for me today. Thanks for watching. Catch ya later. Peace.